In a small, weathered hangar at the edge of a forgotten airstrip, Jack Wheeler's calloused hands told stories of 30 years fixing broken planes. On this stormy evening, a sleek Gulfstream G650 sat grounded, its gleaming hull out of place among the rustic surroundings. 3 mechanics had already failed to diagnose the problem. As rain began to fall, Jack methodically opened his worn toolbox, the same one his father had passed down to him. Within minutes, he identified the issue that had stumped everyone else. What he didn't know was that Catherine Chen, the jet's billionaire owner, was watching silently from her car, seeing something far more valuable than just mechanical expertise. Could one chance encounter between 2 people from vastly different worlds change both their destinies forever? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. Dawn painted the sky in watercolor hues as Jack Wheeler's pickup truck rumbled down the familiar gravel road toward Wheeler Aviation. The faded sign, weathered by decades of sun and storm, still bore his father's handwriting. Inside his shirt pocket, a photograph from 1985 showed a younger version of himself standing beside his dad, both grinning proudly in front of this very hangar. Some mornings, like today, Jack would touch that photograph before unlocking the doors, a quiet ritual that grounded him in purpose. The morning air carried the familiar scent of aviation fuel and morning dew as Jack began his daily routine. He'd learned long ago that success in aviation maintenance wasn't just about fixing what was broken, it was about preventing things from breaking in the first place. His father had drilled that into him from the day he was old enough to hold a wrench. "Dad, you won't believe what happened at school today." Sarah's voice echoed through the hangar as she burst through the side door, her backpack slung over one shoulder. At 16, she was the spitting image of her mother, with the same warm brown eyes and determined set to her jaw. Jack smiled. Setting down his diagnostic tablet, "Let me guess, you aced that physics test you were worried about." Sarah's face lit up. 98%. Mrs. Harrison said my understanding of fluid dynamics was college level. She pulled out the test paper, complete with a gold star sticker at the top. Jack wiped his hands on a shop rag and gave his daughter a one-armed hug. "That's my girl. Your grandmother always said you got the brains in the family." The mention of her grandmother made Sarah's smile soften. "I miss her stories about when this place was busy." She glanced around the hangar, which now housed only 2 small aircraft undergoing maintenance, a far cry from the bustling business it had been in decades past. Jack followed her gaze, feeling the weight of reality settle on his shoulders. The bank statement he'd reviewed last night sat heavy in his desk drawer, another month of barely breaking even. The regional airport 30 miles away had been drawing more and more of their regular customers, offering cheaper rates and newer facilities. But Wheeler Aviation had something they didn't: experience, dedication, and a reputation for solving the unsolvable. "Speaking of stories," Jack said, changing the subject, "how about helping me with the Anderson Cessna?" Might as well put that physics knowledge to practical use. Sarah's eyes lit up. Since she was little, their best conversations had happened while working on aircraft together. She pulled her hair back into a ponytail and grabbed a pair of safety glasses from the workbench. As they worked, Jack shared stories about each tool in his father's old toolbox, about the tricks of the trade that couldn't be learned from any manual. Sarah absorbed everything, asking questions that sometimes made Jack wonder if she'd end up being an even better mechanic than him. The morning passed quickly, punctuated by the occasional visit from local pilots stopping by for minor repairs or just friendly conversation. Old Tom Baker brought in fresh eggs from his farm, insisting it was payment for Jack, showing him how to properly pre-flight his small crop duster last week. Mary Chen, no relation to yesterday's mysterious billionaire, dropped off coffee and homemade dumplings, a monthly tradition since Jack had helped her daughter learn to fly 3 years ago. These were the moments that made the financial struggles worthwhile. Wheeler Aviation might not be profitable by corporate standards, but it was rich in relationships, in trust earned over generations. As the afternoon sun streamed through the hangar doors, Sarah worked on her homework at the old desk in the corner, occasionally glancing up to watch her father work. Jack caught her looking at the college brochures she thought she'd hidden in her textbook. He pretended not to notice, but his heart ached. Sarah deserved every opportunity, every chance to soar beyond this small airport. But with business the way it was, Jack pushed the thought aside and focused on the task at hand. The Gulf Stream, from yesterday, had reminded him of the gulf between his world and the sleek corporate aviation industry. Yet something about that job, about the way the owner had watched him work, felt different. Like maybe, just maybe, it was the beginning of something new. He reached into his pocket, touching the old photograph of him and his father. "What would you do, Dad?" he whispered to himself, though he already knew the answer. His father would. Keep going, keep fixing, keep teaching, keep believing in the value of honest work and personal integrity. The day wound down as it always did, with Jack and Sarah closing up the hangar together, checking each lock twice. Another habit passed. Down from his father. As they walked to the truck, Sarah slipped her hand into his, just like she used to do as a little girl. "Dad," she said softly, "I'm proud of us, of what we do here." Jack squeezed her hand, his throat tight with emotion. Whatever tomorrow might bring, whatever challenges lay ahead, moments like these made everything worthwhile. The legacy of Wheeler. Aviation might not be measured in dollars and cents, but in the lives touched, the trust earned, and the dreams kept airborne. Catherine Chen stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her penthouse office, watching the city lights flicker to life as dusk settled over Manhattan. The Wall Street Journal on her desk lay open to a feature article about her. Catherine Chen, the queen of modern aviation. The headline made her smile wryly. 20 years ago, when she'd started Chen Aerospace Technologies with nothing but student loans and determination, the same publication had dismissed her as another tech dreamer. Her fingers traced the edge of her desk, hand-carved mahogany that cost more than her first apartment. The article painted her as a natural success story, daughter of immigrants who'd worked her way through MIT, transformed a small software company into an aviation empire, and now controlled a significant portion of the private aviation industry. What it didn't mention were the nights she'd slept on office floors, the relationships sacrificed, the constant battle to be taken seriously in an industry dominated by men who'd inherited their positions. The intercom buzzed. "Ms. Chen, the board, is waiting in the conference room." "Thank you, Amanda." Catherine straightened her silk blazer, a habit from years of ensuring every detail was perfect. In this world, any sign of weakness could be weaponized. The conference room fell silent as she entered. 12 faces turned to watch her, most wearing expressions of carefully crafted neutrality. The quarterly board meeting had become a chess game, each move calculated, each word measured. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady, "our Q3 numbers exceeded projections by 27%. She moved through the presentation with practiced precision, addressing concerns before they could be raised, presenting solutions alongside problems. Marcus Reynolds, her longest-serving board member, nodded approvingly. He'd been one of the few who'd supported her from the beginning, who'd seen past her age and gender to recognize her vision. But even his loyalty had limits. She'd learned that lesson early. As the meeting concluded, Catherine remained in her chair, watching the board members file out through the glass walls. She could see her empire, hundreds of employees, billions in contracts, a legacy built from scratch. Yet lately, something felt hollow about it all. Her phone buzzed, a message from her pilot about yesterday's emergency. Landing at that small airstrip, she'd been angry at first, about the delay, about having to rely on some local mechanic. But then she'd watched him work, There had been something compelling about his methodical approach, his quiet confidence. No showmanship, no unnecessary flourishes, just pure, practiced expertise. When he'd identified the problem that had stumped her own maintenance team, she'd felt a spark of something, recognition perhaps, of someone else who understood that true excellence didn't need fanfare. Catherine pulled up his file on her tablet. Jack Wheeler, third-generation aviation mechanic, perfect safety record, modest business, but an impressive reputation among private pilots, the kind of person who'd built America's aviation industry before corporations like hers had taken over. Her research team had compiled a detailed background report within hours. Single father, daughter excelling in school despite limited resources. Community leader, no criminal record, no scandals, no hidden debts beyond a reasonable mortgage. In her world, such genuine simplicity was rare enough to be suspicious. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Ms. Chen?" Amanda stood in the doorway. "Mr. Reynolds asked me to remind you about tonight's charity gala." Catherine suppressed a sigh. Another evening of artificial smiles and strategic conversations, of being either underestimated or feared, of watching people calculate what they could gain from her presence. "Thank you, Amanda. Please have the car ready in an hour." Alone. Again, Catherine returned to the window. Her reflection stared back at her, successful and isolated in equal measure. The article on her desk caught her eye again, particularly the part about her innovative approach to industry integration. An idea began to form. Her company needed experienced maintenance supervisors, people who understood both the technical and human elements of aviation. People with real experience, not just degrees. People like Jack Wheeler. It was a risk, certainly. The board would question bringing in someone without corporate experience. The existing management might resist. But Catherine had built her success on seeing potential where others saw problems. She picked up her phone, then set it down again. This wasn't something to be delegated. Jack Wheeler had shown her respect as a skilled mechanic, not as a billionaire CEO. The least she could do was show him the same courtesy in return. Tomorrow, she decided, she would visit Wheeler Aviation again, this time not as a stranded passenger, but as someone offering an opportunity. Something told her this decision, unlike so many others in her life, wasn't just about business. Catherine gathered her things for the gala, but her mind remained on that small airstrip and the man whose honest competence had, for the first time in years, made her feel like more than just the queen of modern aviation. The security camera feed in Jack's office flickered to life, showing an unfamiliar black Mercedes pulling into Wheeler Aviation's gravel parking lot. He'd installed the system years ago, though in their small community it had seemed almost unnecessary. Now, watching the elegant figure emerge from the vehicle, he was glad for its presence. Catherine Chen looked different in daylight. Yesterday's business suit had been replaced by casual designer wear that probably cost more than his monthly mortgage, but she carried herself with the same quiet authority. Jack found himself straightening his work shirt, suddenly conscious of the oil stains that marked him as firmly belonging to this world of metal and mechanics. The security feed showed her pausing, taking in the weathered building with an appraising eye. She noticed details most missed: the meticulously maintained hinges on the hangar doors, the precisely organized tool stations visible through the open bay, the subtle signs of professional pride that transcended the humble surroundings. "Dad?" Sarah's voice carried from the workshop. "There's someone here to see you." Jack emerged from his office to find Catherine Chen standing just inside the hangar entrance, her presence transforming the familiar space into something almost theatrical. Sarah hovered nearby, curiosity evident in her expression. "Mr. Wheeler," Catherine said, extending her hand. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Her handshake was firm, professional, but there was something in her eyes, a flash of genuine warmth that hadn't been there yesterday. "Not at all, Miss Chen. Though I trust the Gulfstream is performing well." "Perfectly," she smiled. "Your diagnosis was impressive." My corporate maintenance team spent 3 hours running diagnostics, yet you identified the issue in minutes. Experience, Jack shrugged. Sometimes the old ways are the best ways. Sarah cleared her throat pointedly, making Jack smile. Ms. Chen, this is my daughter Sarah. She's my unofficial quality control supervisor. And straight A student, Sarah added, shaking Catherine's hand with surprising poise. Especially in physics. Something shifted in Catherine's expression. Recognition, perhaps, of a younger version of herself. Physics? That's actually relevant to what brings me here today. She turned back to Jack. Mr. Wheeler, could we speak privately? Jack led her to his office, aware of Sarah's barely contained curiosity. The small room, with its aviation certificates and family photos, felt suddenly inadequate. Catherine, however, seemed to relax as she took in the decades of history displayed on the walls. You've built something remarkable here, she said, gesturing to a photograph of 3 generations of Wheelers standing proud before the hangar. A legacy of trust and expertise that's rare in today's corporate world. Jack settled into his chair, noting how she'd chosen to focus on values rather than finances. Sometimes I wonder if there's still a place for operations like ours in the modern aviation industry. That's exactly why I'm here. Catherine leaned forward slightly. Wheeler Aviation represents something my company needs. Genuine expertise and integrity. We have the latest technology, but we're losing the human element, the accumulated wisdom that comes from years of hands-on experience. She reached into her briefcase and withdrew a folder. I'd like to offer you a position as Chief Maintenance, Supervisor for Chen Aerospace's entire East Coast operation. Full relocation package, comprehensive benefits, and she named a salary that made Jack glad he was sitting down. The position would be based in New York, she continued, with excellent schools nearby. The mention of schools wasn't casual. She'd done her homework. Your daughter's physics aptitude wouldn't go unnoticed in our STEM development programs. Jack studied her face, looking for the corporate calculation he'd learned to recognize in similar offers over the years. Instead, he found something unexpected, sincerity and perhaps a trace of vulnerability. Why me? He asked finally. You must have hundreds of qualified candidates. Catherine's response was immediate. Because yesterday, when you fixed that jet, you weren't trying to impress anyone. You were simply doing what you do best, with skill and integrity. That's surprisingly rare in my world, Mr. Wheeler. Through the office window, Jack could see Sarah pretending not to watch them, his daughter, who deserved every opportunity life could offer. The folder on his desk represented more than just a job. It was a doorway to a different future for both of them. I'll need time to think about it, he said carefully. Catherine stood, smoothing her slacks with practiced grace. Of course, take the weekend to review the details. She paused at the door. And Mr. Wheeler, sometimes the best way to honor a legacy is to let it evolve. As she left, Jack watched her through the security feed again, noticing how she stopped to compliment Sarah's physics textbook before departing. The folder on his desk seemed to pulse with possibility, promise, and just a hint of danger. The job offer letter lay open on Jack's kitchen table, its corporate letterhead gleaming under the old fluorescent light. Sarah had gone to bed hours ago, but Jack remained, reading and rereading the details as if they might somehow change. The salary figure alone was staggering, more money than Wheeler Aviation made in 3 years, but it was the other benefits that kept drawing his attention. Comprehensive health insurance, college savings plan, corporate housing in a good school. In district, he pulled out his father's old logbook, its pages yellow with age. Between maintenance records and flight logs were his father's personal notes, wisdom scattered like breadcrumbs through the years. A Wheeler always chooses what's right over what's easy, one entry read. But what was right in this situation? Staying true to family tradition, or giving his daughter the opportunities she deserved? The phone rang, startling him. At this hour, it could only be one person. You're thinking too hard about it, aren't you? Mary Chen's voice carried the wisdom of their 20-year friendship. No relation to Catherine Chen, Mary had been his wife's best friend, and after Linda's passing, she'd become Sarah's unofficial aunt. "How did you know I'd be up?" "Because I know you, Jack Wheeler. I saw that fancy car at the hangar today." Word travels fast in small towns. Jack smiled despite himself. "Catherine Chen offered me a job, chief maintenance supervisor for her entire East Coast operation." The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. "The Catherine Chen of Chen Aerospace?" "The same." He traced the embossed logo on the offer letter. "It's a lot of money, Mary, and opportunities for Sarah. But it means leaving everything. The hangar, Dad's legacy, the community, everything Linda and I built together." Mary's voice softened. "Jack, honey, Linda would want Sarah to have every opportunity. You know that. And your father's legacy isn't in the building. It's in you, in how you work, in what you've taught." "Sarah, the community needs this place," Jack protested, but it sounded weak even to his ears. "The community needs its people to thrive," Mary countered. "Remember what you told me when I was afraid to let Jessica take that flying scholarship? Sometimes love means letting go so they can soar." Jack glanced at the family photos on the wall, his eyes finding Linda's smile. She'd always been the brave one, pushing him to dream bigger. "I don't know if I can do it, Mary. That corporate world. It's not my world. Maybe that's exactly why they need you." Mary paused. "Tell me about her." "Who?" "Catherine Chen. The woman, not the CEO." Jack remembered Catherine's expression when she'd looked at his family photos, the genuine respect in her voice when she'd talked about legacy. "She's different than I expected, more real. When she watches me work, it's like she sees something valuable, something beyond just profit margins." Mary's knowing tone made Jack blush. "And she came in person to offer you the job?" "Yes." A billionaire CEO made a personal visit to a small-town hangar to recruit a mechanic. Mary let that sink in. "Jack Wheeler, for a smart man, you can be remarkably dense sometimes." Before Jack could respond, he heard Sarah's bedroom door open. "I should go, Mary. Thanks for, Just remember, Linda would want you both to fly." Sarah padded into the kitchen, her hair mussed from sleep. "Dad? You're still up?" "Just thinking, sweetheart." He pulled out a chair for her. "Want some hot chocolate?" Sarah nodded, then spotted the offer letter. "Have you decided?" Jack busied himself with making hot chocolate using Linda's old recipe. Extra marshmallows, a pinch of cinnamon. "What do you think about it? Moving to New York would be a big change." "I've been researching the schools there," Sarah admitted, pulling up something on her phone. "The STEM programs are amazing. And Chen Aerospace has this internship program for employees' kids." She trailed off, watching his face. "But I know how much this place means to you, means to us." Jack set the mugs down, noting how his daughter's eyes held the same practical wisdom Linda's had. "Your mother always said you got her common sense. Mom also said we shouldn't let fear of change keep us from growing." Sarah wrapped her hands around the warm mug. "I saw how Ms. Chen looked at you, Dad. Not like the corporate guys who've tried to buy us out. She sees what we're worth." A memory surfaced. Linda, pregnant with Sarah, painting the hangar's office. "This place isn't just about fixing planes," she'd said. "It's about building futures." Jack reached for his father's logbook again, but Sarah's hand stopped him. "Grandpa would understand, Dad. His last entry, you showed it to me once, remember?" Of course he remembered. He'd read it so many times, the words had become part of him. "The greatest legacy we can leave isn't in buildings or businesses, but in the lives we touch and the dreams we nurture." The dawn was breaking as Jack finally made his decision. He found himself in the hangar, surrounded by the tools and memories of generations. The morning light filtered through the dusty windows, catching on his father's old toolbox, the same one that had caught Catherine's attention. His phone felt heavy in his hand as he dialed the number from the offer letter. It rang twice before Catherine answered, her voice alert despite the early hour. "Mr. Wheeler, I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon." "Jack," he corrected gently. If we're going to work together, it should be Jack. The smile in her voice was evident. Jack, then. And you've made your decision? Yes. He looked around the hangar one last time, seeing not what he was leaving, but what he was carrying forward. But I have one condition. Oh? There was a note of genuine curiosity in her voice. This toolbox comes with me. It's not just a tool, it's a reminder of where I come from and why I do what I do. The pause that followed felt weighted with understanding. I wouldn't have it any other way, Jack. As he hung up, Sarah appeared in the hangar doorway, backlit by the rising sun. She didn't say anything, just wrapped her arms around him in a tight hug. Over her shoulder, Jack could almost see Linda's approving smile, could almost hear his father's voice. The wings that lift us aren't always made of metal. The job offer letter would soon be signed and filed away, but its real meaning wasn't in the salary or benefits. It was in the promise of new horizons, in the courage to honor old legacies by creating new ones. Wheeler Aviation would always be part of their story, but perhaps not its final chapter. The keys to their new apartment felt foreign in Jack's hand, sleek and pristine, lacking the comfortable wear of the hangar keys he'd carried for decades. The doorman had called him Sir and helped with their bags, a level of service that made him instinctively want to offer assistance in return. Now, standing in the gleaming kitchen of their corporate housing unit, Jack watched Sarah explore their new home with unbridled excitement. "Dad, come look at this view," she called from her bedroom. The Manhattan skyline stretched before them, a forest of steel and glass catching the afternoon light. 27 floors up, the city looked almost like a technical diagram, the kind he used to study in maintenance manuals. Different from watching the Cubs practice their touch and goes, huh? He said, putting an arm around her shoulders. Sarah leaned into him. "It's like we're in a movie." She paused, noticing his expression. "Are you okay?" "Just adapting." He managed to smile. "Your mom would have loved decorating this place." A knock at the door interrupted their moment. Catherine Chen stood in the hallway, holding a plant in an elegant ceramic pot. "A traditional housewarming gift," she explained, then added with a slight smile, "though I suspect you're more comfortable with wrenches than watering cans." "Please, come in," Jack said, suddenly aware of their half-unpacked boxes and casual attire. Catherine, however, seemed to relax as she entered, as if the informal setting allowed her to shed some of her corporate armor. "How are you both settling in?" she asked, setting the plant down on the kitchen counter. "I hope the apartment meets your needs." "It's amazing," Sarah gushed. "My new room is bigger than our old living room, and did you know we have a gym in the building with a yoga studio?" Catherine's eyes crinkled with genuine warmth. "Wait until you see your new school. The robotics lab alone, which I'm touring tomorrow," Sarah finished excitedly. "Dad, can I go unpack my room? I want to organize everything before Monday." Once Sarah had bounded off, Catherine turned to Jack. "She adapts quickly." "Quicker than her old man," Jack admitted, running a hand through his hair. "Everything here is so different," Catherine supplied. She moved to the window, gazing out at her city. "I felt the same way when I first arrived. 20 years ago, this world was as foreign to me as it is to you now." Jack joined her at the window. "Hard to imagine you ever feeling out of place." "I still do sometimes." The admission seemed to surprise her as much as him. "Success doesn't always equal belonging." She turned to face him. "Your first day is Monday. The corporate team is eager to meet you." The slight hesitation told Jack everything he needed to know. "You mean they're wondering why you hired a small-town mechanic for a senior position? They'll understand when they see you work." She gestured to his father's toolbox, which sat prominently on the kitchen counter. "Bring that with you. Let them see what real expertise looks like." The toolbox caught the city light differently here, its worn leather somehow both out of place and exactly where it needed to be. Like him. "Ms. Chen." "Catherine," she corrected. "After hours, at least, Catherine." The name felt significant somehow. "Thank you, not just for the job, but for..." He gestured around them, encompassing everything from the apartment to Sarah's opportunities. Thank me by proving me right. She moved toward the door, then paused. And, Jack, the corporate world will try to change you. Don't let it. We hired you because of who you are, not who they think you should be. After she left, Jack stood at the window, watching the city lights emerge as dusk settled. Sarah's reflection appeared beside his. She's different when she's not being CEO, Sarah observed. More real, Jack thought about Catherine's admission, of feeling out of place, the careful way she balanced authority with genuine concern. People are usually more complicated than they appear, like how a tough old mechanic might actually be excited about his new job. Sarah teased. Jack laughed, pulling her into a hug. When did you get so wise? Must be all that physics homework. Together, they watched their new city come alive, the toolbox sitting quietly behind them, a bridge between their past and future. Tomorrow would bring challenges, corporate politics, cultural adjustments, new routines to master. But tonight, in this moment, Jack felt something he hadn't expected. Hope, not just for Sarah's future, but for his own. Jack's corporate ID badge felt like a costume prop against his pressed shirt and tie. The photo showed him attempting a professional smile, looking more like someone impersonating an executive than the chief maintenance supervisor of Chen Aerospace's East Coast operations. Yet as he stood in the gleaming maintenance hangar, larger than 4 Wheeler Aviations combined, he felt a familiar certainty return. Planes were planes, no matter how expensive their paint jobs. Mr. Wheeler, a young technician approached, tablet in hand. The quarterly maintenance audit is due for review, and the team leads are waiting in conference room B. Jack nodded, remembering Catherine's advice from their brief morning meeting. Let them see your expertise, not your doubts. He'd noticed how she carried herself differently here, more guarded, each gesture calculated. But there had been that moment, just before she left his office, when her professional mask had slipped and she'd smiled, really smiled, at his father's toolbox, sitting proudly on his desk. The conference room fell silent as he entered. 8 team leads, all wearing expressions ranging from skepticism to barely concealed hostility. Their screens displayed complex diagnostic readouts and maintenance schedules, impressive-looking data that almost obscured the fundamentals beneath. Good morning, Jack began, setting his worn leather notebook beside their sleek tablets. I've reviewed your maintenance protocols, very thorough. But I noticed something interesting about the engine wear patterns on the G650 fleet. He pulled up his own analysis, hand-drawn diagrams alongside digital readouts. See these variance patterns? They're telling us a story about how these aircraft are actually being used versus how we're maintaining them. For the next hour, Jack walked them through his observations, mixing old-school wisdom with their advanced analytics. Gradually, the hostile stares turned thoughtful. By the time he explained how they could extend engine life by 15% through a modified inspection sequence, several team leads were taking detailed notes. Mr. Wheeler, one of them said afterward, I admit I had my doubts when Ms. Chen hired you, but this is, well, it's brilliant in its simplicity. Sometimes we get so caught up in the technology that we forget to listen to the machines themselves, Jack replied, thinking of all the times his father had taught him to diagnose problems by sound and feel. Later that afternoon, Catherine found him in the maintenance bay, sleeves rolled up, demonstrating proper inspection techniques to a group of junior technicians. She stood back, watching as he turned complex procedures into clear, practical steps. His corporate ID badge caught the hangar lights as he moved, no longer looking out of place, but rather like a bridge between 2 worlds. You've made quite an impression, she said once the technicians had dispersed. Marcus Reynolds called me personally to comment on your engine wear analysis. Jack wiped his hands on a shop rag. Some habits never changed. Reynolds, he's the board member you mentioned? The one who's been with the company since the beginning and not easily impressed. Catherine moved closer, examining the engine component he'd been discussing. You know, when I first suggested bringing you on, there was resistance. The board thought we needed another MBA, another data analyst. And now they're seeing what I saw at that small airstrip. She turned to face him, her professional mask softening slightly. Someone who understands that excellence isn't just about following procedures, it's about wisdom, intuition, and genuine care for the work. Their eyes met, and for a moment, the vast maintenance hangar felt as intimate as Wheeler Aviation. Then Catherine's phone buzzed, breaking the spell. "Board meeting," she said, straightening her blazer. "But Jack, some of us are having drinks at the Edison tonight. You should join us. Sarah's at her robotics club meeting until 8, right?" The invitation surprised him. It was the first social overture from the corporate side. "I'd like that." "Good." She smiled that real smile again, the one that transformed her from CEO to simply Catherine. Sometimes the most important maintenance isn't done on engines. After she left, Jack found himself studying his reflection in a nearby aircraft's polished surface. The tie and corporate ID badge didn't look quite so out of place anymore. Neither did the hope he saw in his own eyes. His phone chimed with a text from Sarah. "Dad, I made the robotics team. Dinner to celebrate." "Actually," he typed back. "How about tomorrow? Tonight I'm having drinks with some colleagues." Her response was immediate. "Look who's going corporate. Mom would be proud." Jack touched his father's toolbox, now holding a place of honor in his office. In its worn surface, he could see both where he'd come from and where he might be going. Sometimes he was learning the most important flights weren't taken in aircraft at all. The anonymous letter sat on Jack's desk like a coiled snake. No signature, no return address, just crisp corporate letterhead and a message typed in stark black letters. "Some things are better left to professionals. Know your place or return to your small-town hangar." The threat was clear, despite its careful wording. 3 weeks into his new position, it seemed not everyone appreciated his impact on Chen Aerospace's maintenance division. Jack had found the letter that morning, slipped under his office door sometime after the cleaning crew's midnight round. He knew the timing because of his habit of checking the security feeds, another small-town practice that had proved useful in corporate life. He was studying the envelope when Catherine appeared in his doorway. "Bad news?" she asked, noting his expression. Jack hesitated. In their evening conversations, which had grown more frequent and personal since that first drink at the Edison, Catherine had mentioned the political challenges she'd faced building her company. He didn't want to add to her burdens, but they'd also promised each other honesty. "Someone's not happy with the changes we're implementing," he said, handing her the letter, Catherine's. Face hardened as she read, her CEO mask slipping to reveal genuine anger. "This isn't the first, is it?" "Third this week," Jack admitted, though the others were more creative in their suggestions about my qualifications. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I've handled worse." He smiled slightly. "You should have seen the reactions when Linda and I first took over Wheeler Aviation. Some folks weren't ready for a female head mechanic." Catherine set the letter down carefully, as if it might contaminate her desk. "Jack, this isn't a small-town rivalry. Corporate sabotage can be dangerous." "Mom, Dad." Sarah's voice interrupted from the doorway. She'd started dropping by after robotics practice, doing homework in Jack's office while he finished work. The maintenance team had unofficially adopted her as their mascot, especially after she'd helped diagnose an electrical issue in the diagnostic equipment using principles from her physics class. Catherine smoothly slid the letter into her jacket pocket. "Sarah, how was robotics today?" "We're designing a drone for the state competition," Sarah beamed, then noticed the tension in the room. "Is everything okay?" "Just some administrative challenges," Jack assured her, sharing a look with Catherine. "How about you get started on homework while Ms. Chen and I finish our discussion?" Once Sarah was settled with her books, Catherine led Jack to her private office. The view of Manhattan at dusk usually impressed him, but tonight his attention was on Catherine's concerned expression. The maintenance efficiency numbers since you started are unprecedented, she said, pulling up data on her screen. 15% reduction in downtime, 30% increase in preventive maintenance. Effectiveness. The board is thrilled, most of them anyway. Most. Victor Chang, our VP of Operations, has been vocal about feeling bypassed in your hiring. He's worked here for 15 years, climbed the corporate ladder carefully, and then you brought in an outsider who's changing his systems, Jack finished. I know the type. At Wheeler Aviation, we had a competitor who'd slash prices, spread rumors, anything to damage our reputation. What did you do? Kept focusing on quality work. Truth has a way of rising to the surface. He studied Catherine's face. But you're worried about more than just office politics, aren't you? She sighed, letting her guard down completely for the first time since he'd known her. Chen Aerospace is launching a new division next quarter, private space tourism. It's revolutionary technology, but also risky. We need your maintenance protocols to be implemented before then, but if someone's actively working against us... Exactly. She moved to the window, her reflection overlapping with the city lights. Jack, I didn't just hire you for your technical expertise. I hired you because you understand that maintenance isn't just about machines. It's about trust, about lives. He joined her at the window, close enough to catch the subtle scent of her perfume. Catherine, A knock interrupted them. Sarah stood in the doorway, holding her physics textbook. Dad, could you help me with something? It's about momentum and force vectors. Catherine stepped back slightly, her professional mask returning. We'll continue this discussion tomorrow. And Jack, be careful. Later that night, after helping Sarah with her homework and making sure she was safely in bed, Jack sat in their apartment's living room, examining the anonymous letter again. In the quiet, he could hear his father's voice. Sometimes the biggest challenges test more than just your skills. He opened his laptop and began documenting everything. The letters, the timing, the subtle resistance he'd encountered in meetings. Sarah's physics textbook lay open nearby, its chapters on force and momentum, making him think about the invisible pressures building within Chen Aerospace's pristine corridors. Tomorrow, he'd start his own investigation. After all, every mechanical problem left traces if you knew where to look. Human problems, he suspected, weren't so different. But tonight, his thoughts kept drifting to the way Catherine had looked at him in her office, to the moment before. Sarah's interruption, to the growing sense that he was navigating more than just corporate turbulence. The quarterly financial report on Jack's computer screen told a story that didn't add up, and after 30 years of fixing planes, he'd learned to trust his instincts about irregular patterns. The maintenance department's expenditure logs showed subtle discrepancies, parts ordered but never installed, inspection hours that didn't match actual hangar logs, safety certifications with irregular timestamps. Dad? Sarah's voice startled. Him. She stood in his office doorway, holding a steaming cup of coffee from the break room. You missed dinner. Again. Jack glanced at his watch, surprised to find it was already past 8. Sorry, sweetheart, just trying to make sense of some numbers. Sarah set the coffee down and peered at his screen. Her face took on the same focused expression Linda used to get when tackling a particularly challenging repair. These maintenance cycles are weird. Look at the pattern. It's like someone's deliberately spreading out the inspections to hide something. When did you get so good at reading maintenance logs? Physics Club started a data analysis project last week. She grinned. Plus, I might have been paying attention all those years you taught me about repair schedules. Jack was about to respond when his computer chimed with an incoming email. The sender was anonymous, but the subject line made his heart race. Proof. Chang Industries backdoor deal. Sarah, honey, I need to handle something private. Why don't you head home? I won't be too late. After she left, Jack opened the email. Attached was an internal memo detailing a secret arrangement between Victor Chang and a competing aerospace company, one scheduled to launch their own space tourism program months before Chen Aerospace. The memo suggested that Chang had been deliberately delaying critical safety implementations, using his position to sabotage Catherine's timeline. Jack's finger hovered over the forward button, ready to send this to Catherine, when caution made him pause. In the corporate world, he'd learned evidence could sometimes be as dangerous as accusations. He needed to verify this independently. He pulled up the maintenance staff schedules, cross-referencing them with the irregular patterns he'd noticed. A clear picture began to emerge. Key personnel being reassigned at critical moments, expertise deliberately misaligned with tasks, subtle but systematic undermining of his new protocols. Working late, Catherine's voice made him look up. She stood in his doorway, jacket draped over one arm, looking somehow both tired and elegant. "Just reviewing some reports," he said carefully, studying her face. "Catherine, what do you know about Chang Industries?" Her expression shifted subtly. "Our main competitor in the space tourism sector." "Why?" "Because I think we have a problem." He turned his screen toward her, walking her through his findings. As he spoke, he watched her posture change. The CEO, mask falling completely away to reveal something harder, more determined. "The board meeting is tomorrow," she said finally. "Victor's presenting the readiness report for the space tourism launch. He's been pushing to accelerate the timeline, claiming your new protocols are unnecessarily cautious." "They're not cautious. They're necessary. These systems need proper integration time, or people could die." Catherine finished, moving closer to examine the financial data. Her shoulder brushed against his as she leaned in, and Jack caught himself holding his breath. "The question is, why would Victor risk that?" "Because Chang Industries launches their program in 3 months, Jack said quietly. "And if we're delayed by a major safety incident, they get the market advantage." Catherine straightened, her face tight with controlled anger. "We need proof, Jack. Concrete evidence that can't be explained away." "I might have something," he admitted, pulling up the anonymous email. "But I need time to verify it. These corporate games, they're not my usual territory." Catherine's hand rested briefly on his shoulder. "No, but integrity is. That's why I trust you." She paused, something unspoken passing between them. "Be careful, Jack. Victor has friends on the board, and we can't show our hand until we're certain." After she left, Jack sat back, processing. The financial report still glowed on his screen, its numbers now telling a story of betrayal and ambition. He thought of Sarah's observation about the inspection patterns, of Catherine's tired eyes, of all the lives that would trust their safety to these machines. His phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. "Made you a plate. It's in the microwave. Don't work too late, Dad." Jack smiled, then turned back to his computer. Someone had tried to warn him with that anonymous email. Someone inside Chen Aerospace believed in doing the right thing, even at a cost. Tomorrow would bring the board meeting and Victor's presentation, but tonight he had numbers to chase and a truth to uncover. In the quiet of his office, his father's toolbox sat, watching. Its worn leather, a reminder that some principles remained constant, whether fixing planes in a small-town hangar or navigating corporate intrigue in a Manhattan skyscraper. The old recipe card was yellowed at the edges, Linda's handwriting still clear, despite the years. Mom's Chinese dumplings. Jack found himself smiling as he watched Catherine Chen, Billionaire CEO, carefully folding dumpling wrappers at his kitchen counter, her designer blazer draped over a chair, sleeves rolled up with determined concentration. "You're sure you want to help?" he asked, chopping scallions the way Mary Chen had taught him years ago. "I could have just heated up leftovers." After that board meeting, Catherine shaped another dumpling with surprising skill. "I need something real. Besides, I haven't made these since." She paused, something vulnerable crossing her face. "Since my mother taught me, before college." The board meeting had been tense. Victor Chang's presentation had painted Jack's safety protocols as overcautious, unnecessary barriers to market leadership. But Catherine had held firm, backing Jack's position with the kind of quiet authority that made her so effective. Now, hours later, they were in his kitchen, the city lights twinkling beyond the windows, and the corporate world felt very far away. "Sarah's at her robotics competition?" Catherine asked, reaching for another wrapper. "State finals." Mary, a friend from back home, drove up to cheer her on. He added the scallions to the filling mixture. "She's been texting updates. They made it to the final round." Catherine smiled, and Jack noticed how different she looked here, softer, more natural. "She's remarkable, your daughter. The engineering team can't stop talking about how she solved that diagnostic system problem. She gets her brains from her mother." Jack's hand brushed Catherine's as they reached for the same spoon, and neither pulled away immediately. "Linda would have loved seeing her like this, thriving in your world." "Our world," Catherine corrected gently. "You've made it your own, Jack. The maintenance team's loyalty to you. I haven't seen anything like it in years." "Loyalty goes both ways." He met her eyes, like someone taking a chance on a small-town mechanic. The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. Then Catherine's phone buzzed. It always did. But this time, she glanced at it and set it aside. "It can wait," she said, returning to the dumplings. "Tell me about Linda. Sarah mentions her sometimes, but—" Jack leaned against the counter, the familiar motions of cooking bringing back memories. "She was a force of nature. Best mechanic I ever knew. She could diagnose an engine problem just by listening, had this intuition about machines that I've only seen in one other person." "Oh?" Catherine raised an eyebrow. "You?" Jack smiled at her surprised look. "It's in the way you run your company, that same combination of technical precision and human understanding." Catherine was quiet for a moment, her hands still moving, steadily with the dumplings. "My father wanted me to be a doctor, respectable, secure. When I told him I was starting an aerospace company with my scholarship money and student loans, he didn't speak to me for a year. And now," he passed away, before the company took off. She shaped another dumpling with extra care. Sometimes I wonder if he'd be proud, or if he'd still think I was too ambitious, too focused on proving myself. Jack reached over and gently adjusted her technique. "Like this. It seals better." Their hands moved together, forming the perfect crimp. "And for what it's worth, as a father, I can't imagine not being proud of what you've built." Something shifted in Catherine's expression, a warmth that had nothing to do with their cooking. "Jack, The door burst open, and Sarah rushed, in her face flushed with excitement. "Dad, Ms. Chen, we won. First place in the state." She trailed off, taking in the scene before her. "Oh, am I interrupting something?" "Not at all." Catherine recovered smoothly, though her cheeks were slightly pink. "Your father was just teaching me his dumpling technique, and congratulations, that's wonderful news." "Actually," Sarah grinned, "we used some of your maintenance tracking principles in our robot's diagnostic system. The judges were impressed, like father, like daughter," Catherine said softly, and the pride in her voice made Jack's heart skip. They ended up sharing the dumplings around the kitchen counter, Sarah regaling them with details of the competition, while Catherine asked surprisingly technical questions about the robotics design. The recipe card sat between them, a bridge between past and present, between what was lost and what might yet be found. Later, as Catherine was leaving, she paused. At the door. "Thank you, Jack, for reminding me that not everything has to be about corporate strategy." "Same time next week?" he asked, surprising himself with his boldness. "Sarah's been wanting to learn Linda's red braised pork recipe." Catherine's smile was answer enough. As she left, Jack noticed she'd written something on the back of Linda's recipe card. Her own mother's dumpling filling recipe, in elegant, precise characters. The surveillance photos spread across Jack's desk told a story more chilling than any anonymous threat. Crystal-clear images showed Sarah leaving her robotics practice, Catherine entering her apartment building, Jack working late in the maintenance hangar. The timestamps stretched back weeks. Whoever was watching them had both resources and patience. Security found them this morning. Catherine said quietly, standing by his office window. "In an envelope on my desk, no fingerprints, no camera footage of delivery." Her voice was steady, but Jack could see the tension in her shoulders. "They're escalating." Jack picked up a photo of Sarah at her school's entrance. His daughter looked happy, unaware of being watched. The thought made his hands shake slightly. "Have you contacted the police?" The board advised against it. With the space tourism launch so close, any hint of corporate espionage could spook investors. She moved closer, lowering her voice. "But I have a private security team investigating, and I've doubled the security detail at Sarah's school." "You already had security at her school." Catherine met his eyes. "Since the first threatening letter, I protect what matters, Jack." The unspoken meaning behind her words hung in the air between them, interrupted by a knock at the door. Marcus Reynolds, the veteran board member, entered, without waiting for a response. "Catherine, Jack." His usual warmth was replaced by urgent concern. The preliminary safety report for the space tourism project was just leaked to the press. They're running with a story about rushed inspections and corners being cut. Jack's computer chimed with a news alert. The headline made his stomach turn. "Chen Aerospace gambling with lives, whistleblower reveals safety concerns." "The timing's not coincidental," Catherine said, pulling up the article on her tablet. "The leak focuses on exactly the protocols Victor criticized in the board meeting." "Speaking of Victor," Marcus added, "he's called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning. Says he has crucial evidence about the maintenance department's competency." Jack studied the surveillance photos again. This isn't just about market advantage anymore. Someone's trying to destroy Chen Aerospace's reputation completely. "Not someone," Catherine's voice was hard. "Chang Industries. I should have seen it sooner. Victor's been their man all along, positioned to sabotage us from the inside." A text message lit up Jack's phone. "Dad, weird thing. Someone tried to access my project files at Robotics Club. All my work on the maintenance tracking system we adapted from Chen Aerospace. Is everything okay?" Jack showed the message to Catherine, whose face darkened. "They're not just after the company. They're trying to get to us through Sarah." "I'm pulling her out of school," Jack started, but Catherine shook her head. "That's what they want. To disrupt our lives. Make us look unstable. We need to be smarter." She turned to Marcus. "How many board members can you guarantee are still loyal?" 6, maybe 7. Enough for a majority, if we can prove Victor's involvement. Jack's mind raced. Years of solving complex mechanical problems shifting to this new challenge. The leaked safety report. It had to come from someone with high-level access. If we could trace the digital trail. "Already on it," Catherine said. "My security team's running a forensic analysis, but we need more, something concrete that proves the connection between Victor and Chang Industries." "What about Sarah's robotics project?" Jack suggested. "If they're trying to access it, maybe it's because she inadvertently documented something in the maintenance tracking system that could expose them." Catherine's eyes lit up with understanding. "The timestamp anomalies you found in the inspection logs. Sarah's system might have flagged patterns we missed." "I'll have the security team escort her directly here after school," Marcus offered. "The sooner we—" Another alert chimed on their phones simultaneously. Chen Aerospace's stock was dropping sharply as the safety concerns story spread. Catherine's face remained composed, but Jack saw her hands clench slightly. "They're trying to force an emergency board vote," she said. "If the stock falls too far, they could claim leadership instability." Jack reached for his father's toolbox, a habit that had become almost unconscious in moments of stress. Inside, beneath the carefully organized tools, lay the maintenance logbook he'd kept since his first day. Every inspection, every irregularity, every pattern that hadn't quite fit, all documented with the methodical precision his father had taught him. "Sometimes," he said slowly, "the best evidence isn't digital. It's in the details someone thought were too ordinary to notice." Catherine moved to his side, her shoulder brushing his as she looked at the logbook. like a mechanic who documents everything, even when it seems unnecessary? Exactly. Jack met her eyes, finding in them the same determination he felt. Victor might have covered his digital tracks, but he couldn't have known to hide things from a small-town mechanic's old-fashioned habits. As if to underscore the gravity of their situation, another surveillance photo slipped from the pile. Sarah and Catherine at last week's dinner, laughing over dumplings in Jack's kitchen. A moment of joy that someone had turned into a threat. Tomorrow. Morning, Catherine said, her voice carrying the quiet authority that had built her empire. We end this, Jack nodded, already formulating a plan. In his experience, the most dangerous turbulence was the kind you couldn't see coming. But this time, they knew exactly what storm they were flying into. The USB drive sat innocently on Jack's desk, its blinking light belying the explosive contents within. He'd arrived early for the emergency board meeting to find it waiting for him, unmarked, except for a post-it note in familiar handwriting. The truth about Catherine Chen, open alone. The handwriting was Marcus Reynolds. Jack stared at it, remembering Catherine's words from their first meeting. Success doesn't always equal belonging. With trembling fingers, he plugged it into his laptop. The files populated his screen. Emails, contracts, surveillance photos, but not the ones from yesterday. These showed Catherine meeting secretly with Chang Industries executives over the past year. Financial records revealed hidden accounts, carefully concealed partnerships. Most damning was a signed agreement. Chen Aerospace would deliberately delay its space tourism launch, allowing Chang Industries to dominate the market in exchange for a controlling interest in their operation. It's not what you think, Catherine's voice made him jump. She stood in his doorway, looking smaller somehow, more vulnerable than he'd ever seen her. How long have you been working with them? The pain in his voice surprised even him. Since before I met you. She closed the door, moved closer, but not the way Marcus wants you to believe. Marcus, he's Chang Industries' real agent, has been for years. Catherine's eyes pleaded for understanding. Those meetings, I was gathering evidence, the agreement, a fake to draw them out. I needed to know how deep the corruption went. Jack's world tilted sideways. The safety protocols were genuine. I needed someone with absolute integrity to implement them, someone who couldn't be bought or corrupted. That's why I chose you, Jack, but not just for that. Her voice softened. Never just for that. A knock interrupted them. Sarah stood in the doorway, face pale. Dad, Miss Chen, you need to see this. They followed her to the maintenance hangar's main computer station. Sarah's fingers flew over the keyboard, pulling up her robotics project's maintenance tracking system. I was reviewing the code this morning and found something weird. Someone had accessed the system using Mr. Reynolds' credentials, but the pattern recognition algorithm flagged anomalies in the user behavior. Show me, Catherine said, leaning forward. Sarah highlighted lines of code. See these timestamp clusters? The system logged Reynolds accessing maintenance files simultaneously from different locations. It's like someone else was using his login, Jack finished, pieces falling into place. Victor Chang. But that's not all. Sarah pulled up another screen. The algorithm found a hidden subroutine in the main maintenance software. Every time we updated the safety protocols, it introduced subtle errors, small enough to pass basic checks, but compounding over time. Catherine's breath caught. If the space tourism launch had proceeded on the original timeline, catastrophic failure would have been almost certain, Jack said quietly. They weren't just after market dominance. They wanted to destroy Chen Aerospace completely. The hangar doors opened with a metallic groan. Marcus Reynolds walked in, flanked by security guards, but their weapons were pointed at Catherine. I hoped the USB drive would be enough, Marcus said. His grandfatherly manner turned cold. It would have been cleaner. Catherine exposed as a traitor, Jack and Sarah returning to their simple life, Chen Aerospace absorbed by Chang Industries through proper channels. How long? Catherine's voice was steel. "How long have you been betraying this company?" "Betraying?" Marcus laughed. "I've been saving it. From your naive idealism, your obsession with safety over profit. Chang Industries understands how this game is really played. By sacrificing lives for market share?" Jack stepped forward, positioning himself between Marcus and Catherine. "That's not business. That's murder. It's evolution. The strong survive, the weak get acquired." Marcus nodded to the guards. "Now, Catherine, you'll sign the transfer of ownership documents, or what?" Sarah's voice rang out. She held up her phone, its screen glowing. "Or you'll add our names to the accident statistics, like the evidence I just uploaded to every major news outlet and federal agency." Marcus's face contorted. "You're bluffing." "Check your phone." Sarah smiled, her mother's determination shining through. "It's already trending." Phones throughout the hangar began buzzing as the story broke. Jack's screen lit up with headlines. "Breaking Chang Industries conspiracy exposed and corporate sabotage plot uncovered at Chen Aerospace." "You see, Marcus," Catherine said, her quiet confidence returning, "while you were watching us, we were watching you. Every meeting, every altered file, every betrayal, documented by a teenager's physics project and a mechanic's old-fashioned logbook. Security alarms blared as the real Chen Aerospace security team flooded the hangar. Marcus's hired guards, realizing they'd backed the wrong side, lowered their weapons. "Dad," Sarah moved to Jack's side as Marcus was led away. "Remember when you taught me that the best maintenance isn't just fixing what's broken, but preventing things from breaking in the first place?" Jack pulled her close, his heart swelling with pride. "When did you get so wise?" "I had good teachers." She looked between him and Catherine. "Both here and at Wheeler Aviation." Catherine touched the USB drive in Jack's hand. "I'm sorry I couldn't tell you everything. I needed your genuine reactions to convince them, but every moment with you and Sarah, every conversation, every dinner, that was real." Jack remembered their shared dumplings, the way Catherine had let her guard down in his kitchen, how she'd protected Sarah without being asked. "I know," he said softly. "Truth has a way of rising to the surface." Through the hangar's windows they could see news vans arriving, reporters gathering. The next few days would be chaos, investigations, interviews, stock market fluctuations. But watching Catherine field the first calls with steady confidence, Jack knew Chen Aerospace would emerge stronger. Sarah's phone buzzed again. "Mom would be proud of us," she said, showing him the screen. Mary had sent a photo from years ago. Linda teaching young Sarah how to use a wrench, all three Wheeler generations smiling in front of the old hangar. "Yes," Jack agreed, feeling Catherine's hand slip into his. "She would be." The USB drive's light blinked one final time before Jack removed it, securing the evidence that had almost torn them apart, but had ultimately revealed the truth. In his father's toolbox, beside the logbook that had helped save them, he found a small note he'd written his first day at Chen Aerospace. "Some things change, some things don't. Always trust your instincts." Outside, the morning sun caught the wings of a Chen Aerospace jet taking off, its maintenance perfectly executed, its safety protocols uncompromised. Jack watched it climb, remembering another morning years ago when a broken-down Gulfstream had brought a billionaire CEO to his small-town hangar. "What are you thinking?" Catherine asked, following his gaze. "That sometimes the best flights aren't the ones we plan," he said, drawing her closer. "They're the ones that find us when we're brave enough to trust the journey." Sarah made a show of covering her eyes. "If you're going to kiss, warn me first." They all laughed, the sound echoing through the hangar like a promise of brighter skies. Ahead, the USB drive that had nearly shattered their world now sat harmless in Jack's pocket, a reminder that the strongest bonds aren't built on corporate agreements or digital files, but on trust, integrity, and the courage to believe in something bigger than ourselves. The emergency protocol manual for Chen Aerospace's space tourism division lay open on the conference room table, its pages marked with Jack's careful annotations. Around him, Catherine's most trusted team members gathered, their faces illuminated. by the early morning light filtering through the Manhattan skyline. In the 12 hours since Marcus's arrest, the corporate landscape had shifted dramatically. Chang Industries is calling an emergency shareholder meeting, Amanda, Catherine's assistant, reported. They're trying to paint Marcus as a rouge actor, claiming no knowledge of the sabotage attempt. Of course they are, Catherine said, her voice carrying the weight of battle-tested experience. Their stock dropped 30% when Sarah's evidence went public. They're in damage control mode. Jack studied the protocol manual's safety procedures he'd helped design, now proving more valuable than anyone had imagined. And question is, how many other Marcus Reynolds are still out there? How deep does this go? Sarah, who had insisted on staying despite Catherine's initial protests, pointed to her laptop screen. The algorithms still finding irregular access patterns. In the maintenance systems, different credentials, same behavior patterns. Victor Chang wasn't working alone. Which means we're not just fighting Chang Industries, Catherine concluded. We're fighting an internal war too. She turned to Jack, their shared glance carrying the weight of everything they'd been through. How quickly can we implement a complete system override? Jack ran his hand over the manual's worn pages. With the current team, 3 days minimum. But if these access patterns are right, we don't have 3 days. We have 18 hours, Catherine confirmed. The shareholder meeting is tomorrow at noon. If we can't prove that our systems are secure by then, they'll vote to suspend the space tourism program, Amanda finished. Everything you've built, everything we've built, Catherine corrected, her hand finding Jack's under the table. Which is why we're not going to let them win. Sarah cleared her throat. What if we didn't need to check every system? All eyes turned to her. The maintenance tracking program I developed for Robotics Club, it doesn't just detect problems, it predicts them. If we modified it to run diagnostics on the entire network, we could identify compromised systems before they're activated, Jack finished, pride mixing with concern. But honey, to do that in 18 hours, I'll need help, Sarah admitted. A team of programmers who can adapt the code while I focus on the recognition algorithms. Catherine was already on her phone. Amanda, get me Developer Team Alpha. Pull them off whatever they're doing and increase security on the building. No one in or out without direct authorization. She paused, then added softly, and have someone bring up dinner. I have a feeling it's going to be a long night. As the room cleared for action, Jack found himself studying the protocol manual again. His father had always said that the most important tool in any emergency was a clear head and a steady hand. The manual's procedures were sound, they just needed to be protected from those who would corrupt them. Having second thoughts? Catherine asked, joining him at the table. About the plan? No. About letting Sarah stay in the middle of this? He gestured to the surveillance photos, still pinned to the conference room's evidence board. She's her mother's daughter, Catherine said gently, and her father's. Fighting for what's right is in her DNA. She touched the protocol manual. Just like this is in yours. Jack looked at their reflection in the window. The small-town mechanic and the corporate CEO, both transformed by circumstances neither could have predicted. You know, when you first showed up at Wheeler Aviation, I thought you were just a corporate executive who'd forgotten what really matters. And now I know you're someone who never forgot. He turned to face her. Why didn't you tell me about Marcus sooner? About your suspicions. Catherine's face softened. Because I needed someone whose reactions were genuine, someone whose integrity couldn't be questioned, but also, she hesitated. Because for the first time in years, I wanted something in my life that wasn't about corporate strategy or hidden agendas. Those dinners, those conversations, they were real, Jack finished. All of them. The moment was interrupted by Sarah's return. Team Alpha's here. And Dad, I found something in the access logs you need to see. As they moved to join the developers, Jack caught Catherine's hand. Whatever happens tomorrow, we face it together, she said firmly. All of us. The protocol manual remained open on the table. its procedures a testament to the power of doing things right, even when others chose easier paths. Outside, the city lights began to twinkle on, a reminder that even the darkest storms eventually pass. But first, they had a long night ahead of them and a company to save. The hand-drawn strategy map covered the conference room's glass wall, Sarah's precise diagrams detailing their plan of attack. Red lines tracked compromised systems, blue marked secure ones, and yellow highlighted potential vulnerabilities. It looked more like a battle plan than a corporate flowchart, which Jack reflected was exactly what it had become. 4 hours until the shareholder meeting. The night had passed in a blur of coding, system checks, and coffee. Sarah's modified tracking program had already identified 3 more compromised access points, each carefully documented with the same attention to detail she'd learned working on aircraft maintenance logs. Team Alpha reports the last firewall is in place, Amanda announced, adding another blue line to the map. But Victor Chang's credentials are still actively accessing secondary systems. Catherine stood at the window, her reflection overlaying the city's dawn skyline. She'd changed into a fresh suit, but fatigue showed in the set of her shoulders. He's trying to corrupt enough data to make us look incompetent at the shareholder meeting. Not trying, Sarah corrected, not looking up. From her laptop. Watch this. She projected her screen onto the glass wall, overlaying the strategy map. Lines of code scrolled past, revealing a pattern. He's not just corrupting data, he's replacing it. Every safety protocol Dad implemented is being overwritten with the original compromised versions. Jack moved closer to the display. His mechanics. Eye for detail, catching something. There, see how the replacement protocols are being tagged? That's the same signature structure we found in the original sabotage attempt. Chang Industries' fingerprints, Catherine nodded. But proving it to the shareholders will take more than just technical evidence, a new voice said. Marcus Reynolds' wife, Elizabeth, stood in the doorway, holding a leather portfolio. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she'd had an even longer night than they had. Elizabeth. Catherine's voice was careful, neutral. I didn't expect to see the wife of a traitor. Elizabeth's smile was bitter. Neither did I expect to find 30 years of insider trading records in my husband's home office. Amazing what a man will hide from his wife. She held up the portfolio, and from his co-conspirators. Jack recognized the look in Elizabeth's eyes. He'd seen it in his mirror the day he'd decided to leave Wheeler Aviation. The look of someone choosing integrity over comfort. Everything's here, Elizabeth continued, laying out documents. Dates, transactions, recordings of meetings with Chang Industries going back decades. Marcus, he kept records of everything. Insurance, he called it. Sarah's fingers flew over her keyboard. These dates match the system access patterns perfectly. If we cross-reference, a security alert flashed across the strategy map. Victor Chang had entered the building. Earlier than expected, Catherine said, her CEO mask sliding back into place. Elizabeth, are you ready to present this evidence at the shareholder meeting? More than ready. Marcus chose his insurance over our marriage. I'm choosing the truth. Jack studied the strategy map, seeing not just data flows, but people's lives, employees who trusted the safety protocols, future passengers whose lives would depend on them, his daughter's brilliant future. We're still vulnerable in the auxiliary control systems. If Victor makes one last push before the meeting, he will, Catherine said. It's what I would do in his position. Sarah, how long to lock down those systems? With Team Alpha's help? Maybe an hour. But the shareholder meeting starts in 20 minutes, Amanda finished, checking her tablet. Catherine straightened, decision made. Jack, take Sarah and Team Alpha, secure those systems. Amanda, get Elizabeth to my office. We need to prepare her statement. I'll handle the shareholders until you're done. Catherine, Jack started, but she shook her head. I've faced worse boardrooms alone. Her hand found his, squeezed once. Just hurry back. Sarah was already gathering her equipment, the strategy map reflecting in her determined expression. Dad, I have an idea about the auxiliary systems. Remember what you taught me about pressure points in hydraulic lines? How the smallest weakness can affect the entire system, Jack smiled. Just like your mother, always seeing connections others miss. They moved with purpose now, each to their assigned tasks. But at the door, Jack turned back. Catherine stood, framed against the rising sun, power and vulnerability balanced in her stance. Catherine, she turned. Linda always said that the strongest metals are forged in the hottest fires. A real smile, brief but bright. Then it's a good thing I have a master mechanic on my side. The strategy map glowed behind them, its intricate lines telling a story of corruption exposed and integrity defended. In a few hours, they would know if it was enough. But for now, they had work to do. Sarah's voice carried from the hallway. "Dad! Team Alpha's ready!" Jack squared his shoulders. "Time to show Victor Chang what happened when you threatened a Wheeler's family, both old and new." The security camera feeds filled the maintenance control room's main screen, showing multiple angles of the unfolding drama. In the main boardroom, Catherine stood commanding the shareholders' attention, her voice carrying through the audio feed. With steady authority, 3 floors below, Victor Chang moved through the auxiliary control center, his security clearance still active despite everything they knew about him. "He's heading for the main server bank," Sarah reported, her fingers flying over her keyboard. "Team Alpha's firewalls are holding, but he's trying to brute force his way through the safety protocol databases." Jack watched the security feed, years of mechanical intuition shifting to this new kind of diagnosis. He's not just after the safety protocols. Look at his pattern. He's working his way toward the flight control systems. The space tourism launch controls? Sarah's eyes widened. But those are isolated from the main network. "Unless someone had already created a backdoor," Jack finished. He keyed the internal comm. "Catherine, we've found his endgame. He's not trying to delay the launch. He's trying to ensure it fails catastrophically." On screen, Catherine didn't visibly react to the news, but her next words to the shareholders took on added weight. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we're uncovering isn't just corporate espionage. It's an attempt to destroy not just Chen Aerospace, but the very future of civilian spaceflight." "Dad!" Sarah's urgent voice drew his attention back to the security feeds. "He's uploaded something to the auxiliary systems, some kind of cascading override." The maintenance control room's lights flickered. On their screens, system after system began showing warning indicators. "He's trying to force an emergency startup sequence," Jack realized. "If those engines fire with the compromised protocols, the whole system could explode." Sarah was already moving, her mother's determination written across her face. "We need to get down there." "No." Jack's voice was firm. "You stay here with Team Alpha. Keep those firewalls up. This is something I need to handle personally." On screen, Victor Chang worked with the practiced efficiency of someone who had planned this moment carefully. But Jack saw something in his movements that reminded him of countless mechanical problems he'd solved over the years. The tendency of pressure to find the weakest point. The maintenance corridors were empty as Jack made his way down, emergency lights casting everything in a red glow. Through his earpiece, he could hear Catherine continuing to address the shareholders, her voice never wavering as she laid out the evidence of Chang Industries' conspiracy. "The auxiliary control center's locks are failing," Sarah reported in his ear. "He's almost through." "Good," Jack said quietly. "Sometimes you have to let pressure build to find the real problem." He reached the control center just as Victor finished overriding the last lock. The younger man spun at the sound of the door, his corporate polish cracking slightly at the edges. "Mr. Wheeler, come to watch your new world crumble?" Victor's smile didn't reach his eyes. "You should have stayed in your small-town hangar." "Funny thing about small towns," Jack said, moving carefully into the room. "You learn to read people the same way you read machines. Notice the small signs that something's not right. Like noticing that your precious CEO hired you for more than just your mechanical expertise? Victor's fingers moved across the control panel. Catherine Chen doesn't care about you or your daughter. You're just another tool in her corporate toolkit. Above them, Catherine's voice continued steady and strong. The evidence we've uncovered shows a systematic attempt to undermine not just our company, but the safety of every future passenger who trusts us with their lives. You're wrong about her, Jack said simply. Just like you're wrong about what's happening right now. Victor's smile faltered slightly. What are you talking about? Sarah, Jack called out. Show him. The screens around them came to life, showing line after line of code, Sarah's modified tracking program, recording and analyzing every keystroke Victor had made in the past hour. Did you really think Catherine Chen would leave her auxiliary systems unprotected? Jack asked quietly. Everything you just uploaded? It's been redirecting to a secure server, documenting every attempt at sabotage. Victor lunged for the control. Impanel, but Jack was faster, years of mechanical work having kept him stronger than he looked. They grappled briefly before Jack pinned him against the console. The thing about maintenance, Jack said, holding the struggling man firmly, is that it's not just about fixing what's broken. It's about understanding how things work together, including people. Security officers flooded the room, Elizabeth Reynolds among them, holding printouts of her husband's records. Victor Chang, I believe we have something to discuss about your connection to my husband's activities. On the security feed, Catherine's voice rose in quiet triumph. And now, ladies and gentlemen, if you'll turn your attention to the live feed from our auxiliary control center. The shareholders' gasps were audible as they witnessed the scene unfolding below. Victor Chang, caught in the act, his connection to the conspiracy exposed for all to see. Dad, Sarah's voice came through his earpiece, trembling with relief and pride. We did it. But Jack knew they weren't finished yet. The real test still lay ahead, proving that Chen Aerospace could emerge from this stronger, ready to carry its passengers safely into the future. The board meeting minutes projected onto the screen told the story in stark corporate language. Emergency session resolution. Unanimous vote of confidence in Catherine Chen's leadership. Space tourism launch to proceed under enhanced safety. Protocols. Victor Chang and associated parties to face criminal charges. But it was the unwritten moments that would be remembered. Catherine's quiet strength as she presented the evidence. The shareholders' faces as they realized how close they'd come to disaster. Elizabeth Reynolds' testimony that brought down the last of the conspiracy. And now, in the aftermath, the maintenance hangar had become a gathering place for celebration. The board minutes don't mention the real heroes, Catherine said softly, joining Jack as he studied the official record. A small-town mechanic and his brilliant daughter who saved not just the company, but countless future lives. Don't forget the CEO who was brave enough to trust them, Jack replied, noting how she stood closer than corporate protocol might suggest. Around them, Team Alpha celebrated with Sarah, their technical discussions punctuated by laughter and relief. Amanda appeared with a tablet displaying breaking news headlines. Chen Aerospace uncovers corporate conspiracy. Chang Industries stock plummets amid scandal. Space tourism safety champion emerges stronger. But it was a smaller headline that caught Jack's eye. Small-town values save corporate giant, the Wheeler family story. Speaking of family, Catherine said, her professional mask softening into something more personal. There's something I'd like to discuss with both you and Sarah. She led them to her office, where the Manhattan skyline painted the evening in shades of possibility. Sarah perched on the edge of a chair, still buzzing with the excitement of their victory, while Jack noticed something different about Catherine's usually pristine desk. A familiar maintenance logbook lay open beside her corporate documents. The board didn't just vote to continue the space tourism program, Catherine began. They also approved a new division, the Wheeler Institute for Aviation Safety and Innovation. Sarah's eyes widened. Like, named after us? More than that. Catherine's smile held both professional pride and personal warmth. A training facility, combining traditional mechanical wisdom with cutting-edge technology. Your father's expertise and your brilliant innovations, Sarah, proved that we need both. The Institute will ensure that future generations of aerospace engineers and mechanics learn the way you both taught us, with heart, integrity, and hands-on wisdom. Jack found himself speechless, thinking of his father's old hangar, of Linda's determination to build something meaningful, of all the lessons passed down through generations of mechanics. There's more, Catherine continued. Sarah, that maintenance tracking system you developed, the board wants to implement it across all our operations. With you as lead consultant, of course. Once you finish school, she added quickly, seeing Jack's paternal concern surface. My own project, really? Sarah's excitement shifted to thoughtfulness. But what about Wheeler Aviation? All those people who depend on it? That's the other part of the proposal, Catherine said, meeting Jack's eyes. Wheeler Aviation would become a certified training center for the Institute. Expanded facilities, full corporate support, but maintaining its independence and community connection. Mary Chen has already agreed to manage daily operations. Jack looked at the maintenance logbook on Catherine's desk. His father's teachings, his own experiences, and now a future he'd never imagined. You've thought of everything. Not quite everything, Catherine said softly. She turned to Sarah. Honey, would you give your father and me a moment? Sarah stood, trying to hide a knowing smile. I should check on Team Alpha anyway. Make sure they're not trying to hack the coffee machines again. Once they were alone, Catherine moved closer to Jack. There's one more thing. A personal matter. The rumors about us? Jack had heard the corporate whispers, seen the speculative glances. Let them talk. Catherine's voice held the same quiet certainty she'd shown in the boardroom. These past months, watching you work, having dinner with you and Sarah, seeing how you bring out the best in everyone around you, it's made me realize something. That small-town values aren't so small after all. That love isn't a corporate transaction. She took his hand, her CEO persona completely gone. And that sometimes the most important mergers aren't about business at all. Jack thought of all the moments that had led them here. A broken jet on a stormy evening, shared dumplings in his kitchen, crisis faced together, truth rising to the surface like his father always said it would. Catherine Chen, he said softly. Are you proposing a merger? More like a partnership, she smiled, moving closer. Equal stakes, shared vision, unlimited potential for growth. Through the office window, they could see Sarah with Team Alpha, the future of aviation bright in their excited discussions. The board meeting minutes glowed on the screen, recording corporate history, while his father's logbook lay open on the desk, representing timeless wisdom. Past and future, tradition and innovation, heart and mind, all coming together in ways Wheeler Aviation's founders could never have imagined. You know, Jack said, drawing Catherine closer, I've always believed the best maintenance includes regular inspections, lifetime commitment to quality control. Mr. Wheeler, Catherine whispered, her lips close to his. I believe that can be arranged. The wedding invitation sat framed in the newly renovated Wheeler Aviation office, its elegant design combining Catherine's sophisticated taste with Jack's down-to-earth style. Together with their daughter Sarah, Catherine Chen and Jack Wheeler, request the honor of your presence as two families, two traditions, and two ways of life, joined to build something greater than the sum of their parts. Mary Chen stood admiring it while supervising the installation of new training equipment. The old hangar had been transformed, yet somehow remained true to its roots. Modern diagnostic stations sat beside carefully preserved traditional tools. Students from the Wheeler Institute moved between them, learning to balance innovation with time-tested wisdom. The first-class graduates next week, Sarah announced, entering with an armful of tablets for the trainees. At 18, she'd grown into a poised young woman who moved easily between the corporate and mechanical worlds. Mom would have loved seeing this place now. She sees it Mary smiled, adjusting Linda's old photo on the wall. Through you, through everything you and your father have built here. The sound of a familiar truck pulling up drew their attention. Jack and Catherine emerged, both dressed casually for the weekend inspection tour that had become their tradition. Their wedding rings caught the sunlight as they walked together, their movements synchronized by months of shared purpose and deepening love. The latest safety protocols have been implemented across all divisions, Catherine was saying, her corporate authority now softened by genuine contentment. The space tourism program launches next month, and bookings are already exceeding projections. And every system double-checked by Wheeler Institute graduates, Jack added proudly, greeting Sarah with a hug. How's the new training group doing? Learning that there's no substitute for hands-on experience, Sarah grinned. Just like you always taught me, though the simulator I designed is helping with the basics. Catherine watched them with warm eyes. No longer the isolated CEO, but part of something richer and more meaningful. The Wheeler Institute had become more than just a training facility. It was a bridge between worlds, proving that integrity and innovation could not just coexist, but strengthen each other. Have you told them your news? Mary asked Sarah, who blushed slightly. I got early acceptance to the aerospace engineering program, she announced. Full scholarship, plus an internship with Chen Aerospace's research division. Jack pulled his daughter close, his eyes shining. Your mother would be so proud, honey, so proud. We all are, Catherine added, joining their embrace. She'd learned the art of family from them, just as they'd learned to dream bigger because of her. Through the hangar doors, they could see the next generation of aviation professionals at work, carrying forward the legacy of Wheeler Aviation while embracing the future Catherine had helped them envision. The wedding invitation caught the afternoon light, its promise fulfilled in ways none of them could have imagined, that stormy evening when a broken jet first brought their worlds together. Mary watched them all head out to inspect the facilities. This unlikely family that had grown from trust, respect, and love. Above them, a Chen Aerospace jet traced its path across the clear blue sky, its safe passage ensured by the perfect marriage of old wisdom and new technology, of small-town values, and corporate vision, of two hearts that had found each other while staying true to who they were. The family portrait on Catherine's desk captured a moment of perfect balance. Jack in his Wheeler Institute director's jacket, Catherine elegant yet relaxed in casual business wear, and Sarah proudly displaying her first-year aerospace engineering project. Behind them stood the expanded Wheeler Aviation Hangar, its new sign reading Wheeler Institute for Aviation Safety and Innovation, where tradition takes flight. Today marked 1 year since Chen Aerospace's successful space tourism launch. 1 year since the Wheeler Institute's first graduation. 1 year since a small-town mechanic and a corporate CEO proved that the strongest bonds are built on trust, integrity, and love. Through the window of their shared office, Jack and Catherine watched Sarah teaching a new class of students, her mother's determination and father's wisdom shining in every gesture. Sometimes the best gifts we pass down aren't the ones we can hold in our hands, but the ones we carry in our hearts.